Yep, fine. So we have started the recording. So we are on day 5 of Hyperautomation free UiPath training. So on day 1, we have discussed the UiPath ecosystem. So what are the different platforms we can utilize? How can we get something that was related to the free certifications through UiPath Academy? How to join some community events? How to utilize the forum and all these things, right? So day 2 is something where we have discussed what is basically RPA, what is something UiPath in the RPA space. So, and also we have discussed about the robotic development lifecycle. So right from the discovery phase to the deployment phases, what are the documentation that was involved in terms of feasibility analysis, requirement gatherings, design phase, development phase, testing, handover, and all these things, right? And therefore, day 3. So yesterday we have discussed something that was related to various components that was available inside your path. So we have seen various components right from the discovery, automate, and operate phases, right? So we have discussed around like 15 to 20 tools which is there in the RPA ecosystem, right? So that is what we have discussed yesterday. And our major agenda is to something we are targeting the role of a developer. We want to kickstart our thing from the basics, where we will be trying to target mostly on the studio. So let's jump into studio overview today. So which will just we will have a walkthrough of what is been there inside your Path Studio. If you're starting fresh, like um, what are the different components you can see inside the studio, or the parts, or how to kickstart your things from the Path Studio. That is what we are going to learn today. So if you have any queries, please do let us know in the chat window. So we will try to respond accordingly. Thank you. Hope my screen is visible and my voice is audible, right? Can anyone please confirm?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yes, yes. Thank you. So let me just open. Yes. Fine. So let's talk mostly on the RPA design and the development approach. Yeah. So just go through the PPT here, or else like the PDF. So we're just going for the introduction to UiPath. So the agenda for the lesson is like UiPath and its products mostly, robot studio overview and all. So which is our major agenda today. We'll be talking about the studio overview. Okay. So this has already been discussed yesterday. Introduction to UiPath installed in the products, where we have discussed about right from the discovery phase to the operate or the measure phase. So these were all the components, and also there are a lot more components being added to these particular things. And especially I can say these were the 3 important core components of our UiPath. So studio, orchestrator, and robot, which will help you to design, control, and execute the things. So this is what you need to have as a core competency if you are learning something related to UiPath. And that is what we are going to target in this initial 10 days of our free training. Okay. So we have different types of robots basically. So let's talk about the different type of robots. We have attended robots and unattended robots. So what is basically the difference between these two types? And what is basically robots? So robots are nothing but UiPath execution agents that enables the user to run the process developed in the studio. So let's say that I want to run this particular bot on 10 virtual machines, or else like 20 virtual machines, or else like based on my business requirements and all, you need to run it on 3 machines or 5 machines. So when you're trying to run on these machines, that particular machines were called as execution agents. Nothing but if you have 100 applications and that applications are processed by 10 people, the 10 people here in your path terminology is called as something called as an execution agents, right? So execution agents is something when you develop, it's the developer who try to design what actually based on the business requirements. And it is also the responsibility of the particular administrator to maintain these particular bots. I want to run this bot on daily basis at evening 9 o'clock, or else like I want to run this particular bot on bi-weekly basis only on Friday morning 9 a.m. Or else I want to run this particular bot only once in a particular month. So that particular requirements based on the business part is maintained by the administrator. Okay. And once that was maintained, it was run on the UiPath robots. Fine. So let's see about the different components here again. Okay. So robots and the types which we're talking, attended robots and unattended robots. So attended robots is something where it requires again a human interface. I mean like human intervention. Sorry. So it's triggered by the user events. Let's say that there are 10 steps in the particular process. At the sixth step, there is something called a human requirement is there. So he need to just provide the input so that the bot will try to run, and it will be trying to run on the same machine a particular user will be utilizing. So let's say that I'm trying to run some KYC process on my machine. So it's not on the virtual machines you'll be trying to run. It's on the individual machines you'll be trying to trigger the particular bots and all based on your requirements. Unattended bots operate without the human intervention. So it's either something that was triggered through two types, either through a queue trigger or else something that was triggered through a time trigger. So automatically at 9 o'clock, the bot will try to run on the particular virtual machine and all. It doesn't require any human interaction. Excuse me. So work standalone in the virtual environment, but it is triggered by the user events basically. So these were the two important differences you need to identify when we're talking about attended robots and unattended robots. Right. The same thing. So how do they work? Triggered by the users. So they collaborate with the human intervention. So on the same mission with the user performs like day-to-day, same mission. Okay. But when coming to the unattended robots, control through the orchestrator. So run long running process automations, animation connected to the orchestrator. Right. So that's the basic difference between attended and unattended robots. Even when you take the license in the enterprise, nothing but if you're working in the organizations, when the organizations try to procure the license of unattended robots is more when compared to attended robots. So unattended robots will cost you around like 3 to 4K dollars, and but attended robots it will cost you around like $1,200 or something. It will depends from company to company again in terms of pricing too. Okay. So let's talk about the introduction to Studio and features in the Studio and the Studio UiPath Studio editions. Right. So introduction to Studio. So one of the biggest advantage we have in the Studio, it's a low-code technology. So low-code technology is something where you have the capability of a code, but you can see it here in the form of a tool with the form of an activities here, right? So we can try to visualize everything here as a drag and drop, and it's a low-code technology, right? So generative workflows to be executed by the robots, automate applications. Which applications we can automate? So we can automate a number of applications here. So it comes in terms of SAP, mainframe, Java, .NET, C Sharp, uh, database, Excel-based applications, email-based applications, so PDF, PPTs, and all these things, right? So you just name the application. We have the capability here in terms of UiPath here, right? So Studio X is something for the people who has a less knowledge, nothing but it is something for the people who has a business knowledge on top. So it is something for the citizen developers, what we call, right? But mostly 90% of the projects or 95% of the projects will be developed mostly on the Studio. But now it's also having a capability of Studio X. So that is one thing. So features of Studio, we already discussed productivity, drag and drop. So code quality, we have also the workflow analyzer, which will help you to create custom rules when you are trying to create the code. So project template, browser extensions and all. So version control, we can utilize JIT, TFS, RESTVN for integrations. So we can also have a debugging of your particular code, what you have created and all. And also it can be leveraged across multiple projects by creating the libraries or custom templates. So that is a basic, not the basic, like this is something on the add-ons we have when we are trying to create something in terms of the studio. Like studio editions, as we are speaking, we have two types of editions, not two, three, I can say. Community edition is something where we will be trying to leverage. So enterprise edition is something where you are trying to work in organizations, you know, to procure the enterprise editions. But for the learning purpose, we can try to utilize the community edition, which is coming with similar features of what we have in the enterprise edition. Okay. So available on to anyone for download, practice, and development. So we will try to show you or provide you some resource how you can download and practice and start doing the development in the studio. The user can access the license for free. Yes, it is for free of cost. It is updated regularly, more than once in a month. So whenever there is something, an update comes in the picture, in content edition, it will be automatically updated, right? So that is one of the things you can see in terms of the community edition. But coming to the enterprise edition, available for enterprise developments for the businesses. So let's say that I'm working with companies called IBM or TCS or Infosys or XYZ, Cognizant, any company. So they cannot try to utilize community editions. They can also utilize, but the business or the end clients will not be utilizing or they'll be not agreeing. So they need to procure the license, nothing but they need to buy the licenses. For development, they need to buy the license. For maintaining nothing but orchestrator, they need to buy the license. They need to buy the license for execution agents also, nothing but the robots. Even if you want to utilize something called document understanding, so they try to leverage something called as AI units. If you are trying to create something called applications, you can utilize something called app units and all. Or else if you want to utilize something called task mining or the process mining, you need to buy the license related to unassisted task mining license and all these licenses is not the headache of the developer and all. The team, business team will be trying to take all the control, and your responsibility is to maintain or create the bots and test the bots and provide the code quality to the product what you have been trying to build and all. Okay. So the user needs to purchase a license to access it. Yes, if it's enterprise, you need to buy the license. It gets major updates twice a year. So you can see if it is in 2024, you can see 2024.4 and 2024.10, which were stable versions. But there will be versions that is being deployed now and then. But you will have a two major releases. Okay, the updates are installed manually. So companies, let's say that I'm working with company XYZ, but I'm still utilizing 2023.10 only because there might be new features coming in 2024.4 or this other versions, but still we cannot assure the stability of the particular tool and all. There might be some sort of uh, what I can say some sort of vulnerabilities which the IT team need to audit and all. And once they audit, they'll try to update the newer versions in the companies or organizations too, right? But we'll be trying to utilize the community edition. It comes with the same features of enterprise edition. Okay, right. Orchestrator will try to discuss going forward, which will help you to maintain the bots and all. Right. When we talk about something called UiPath Studio installation, so where we can install the Studio edition and all, right? So let me just navigate you through the particular what you can say website. So where you can download cloud.yopa.com is something where you can uh, utilize. Right. So already we have discussed this thing on the day one session. So where you can try to navigate to cloud.yopa.com, right? So there's the platform which will help you to uh, download the UiPath Studio. So once you are in this particular cloud.yopa.com, so you can see at the rightmost part download studio, right? So simply hit on download studio. You can just download at any of your locations, right? So you can see MSA file is getting installed. So there is something called UiPath Studio community.msa file. It comes with around 1 GB of particular file. So where you can install that in your system. So I have already installed and I'll try to provide you a link which will try to help you navigate the steps. It's mostly simple thing. If you have any queries, you can ping us personally with the admins who are there in the particular group. But still, I'll provide you the resource, nothing but what I can say, the video for downloading how your Path Studio happens. Right, fine. So this is where you can download the studio. It comes with the latest version 2024.6 or 2024.4.2. Okay. So now let me just open your Path Studio. Or else like we'll just see what are the different ribbons we have here, right? So we have something called ribbons here. The ribbon consists of three tabs here again. So we can see here the home, design, and the debug, right? So let's talk about the home. In the home, what we'll have again? So we have the start, templates, team, tools, settings, and help. The start is something where you can just try to start or create your new projects. So templates, there are different templates available directly provided by your path itself. Based on your requirement, you can even choose the templates. So team is something where you will try to integrate with either SVN, TFS or JIT. So tools is something where you can try to install the extensions for your particular your path. So settings, no need to do any changes mostly. 99% of the default settings will help you to go with the smooth journey of automation. So help is something where you can also request for some sort of help or provide the feedback based on the product experience. Right. So we'll try to see it in the things. When you're talking about the start tab, this is where you can just try to create or open the existing projects and all. So let me just open the UiPath Studio. So where you can parallelly see all the things which I'm trying to explain. So what is the basic requirement for installing Studio and all? You require minimum 8 GB RAM. So 4 GB also will still help you out, but 8 GB RAM is something that is suggested, and it requires minimum Windows OS 7 and above, and also it requires .NET Framework 4.5 and above, and also it requires a basic space of minimum 2 GB for installation pattern, right? So once you install, this is the first page where you will be trying to launch, right? So once you open Studio, this is where you will be trying to see. So when I just click on help here, right, you can see what is a version of the tool I'm trying to utilize. It's 2020.2024.4.0. It's a community edition, and also it comes with saying My Windows is Windows 11, and also I have something called .NET Framework 8.0 new, right? So this is something where you can see, right? So once you click on settings here, this is something general settings. If you want to change some design settings and all, if you want to change the locations of area or particular your path files will be downloading, or you want to manage the licenses. So you can also change the profile. As I said, you have something called Studio X and Studio Web. You can change the profiles here, but I have installed something called Studio. So code editor, something which will help you out with the newer version of what I can say. Coded automation is also there, which you can see here. That's something the settings you will try to utilize. So team, which I've already said, you can integrate with the JIT, SVN or TFS. So this is something called theme. So templates, we have different sort of what I can say templates available directly by UiPath where you can utilize. It really depends what is the type of template you're trying to utilize. So tools, when we are talking about extensions, let's say that I want to interact with the Java-based application, you know, to make sure that you have installed the Java extension here so that your path can interact with the Java-based applications, right? So we have some query here. Let's see what's the query. So your voice is low. Is it better now or it's still low?
It's good.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, thank you. Right. So extensions comes with those things, or also we have something called plugins. So let's say that I have saying about JIT integration, we require some sort of plugins. So and when you're talking about the test projects and all, you require Test Explorer, Test Manager. Okay. And when we're talking about the start, so this is something where you will be trying to kickstart your projects creations and all. Right. So now you're on the start page, and if you want to create a project, you need to click on something called process, and you need to provide the name, description, and where you want to save the files, and what sort of compatibility we have here, and also what sort of a language you're trying to create when you're trying to do something on the UiPath, right? So let's say that I'll be trying to create something called Hyperautomation_AI, and the description, let's say that so pre-patch. Okay. So it's already been default that in documents you create something called your path folder. Under your path folder, you will be created with something called Hyperautomation-ai. So compatibility is something we can select a framework compatible with the operating system of your execution environment. So sometimes you'll be trying to execute your particular boards and Windows machine and also in the cross platform. Cross platform comes with something called Mac machines or as the Linux machines. You cannot do the development on Linux or Mac machines, but you can run your particular machine, particular code on this cross platform things. So when you're trying to create, you need to select the compatibility. Mostly you'll go with the Windows compatibility. And since this particular your path is built on .NET framework, it supports VB or C Sharp. So I'll be most utilizing VB, or else you might also utilize C Sharp. So based on your flexibility, you can try to utilize. So sometimes you might be required to write the code. So maybe 90, out of 100% of your development, 95% of your things comes with the activities, but still you can write some sort of code or required to write some sort of code. You require something called VB or C Sharp. It purely depends. Okay. So I'll be just creating the project here. Okay. So this is how your interface happens when you try to create a project, right? So now let's jump into our PPT to see what's there next for us to explore. So we have seen about different templates. Yes, that comes with lots of templates. Team is where you try to just integrate with the SVN, TFS, all these things. A tools tab which will help you to install the extensions, settings. If you want to change the settings, you can do that. And generally, the design, we will be not touching all these parts. Locations where you are trying to store resources, licenses, if you want to convert from Studio to Studio X, which you already discussed. Help tab where you can see the licensing part and all. Right. So this is most important thing which we are trying to learn the development part, right? So let's try to concentrate on this particular design tab, right? So this is how your things, right? Thing starts when you try to click on something called create a process. You'll be launched inside the design panel. So design ribbon, right? So let's try to see what is there in the system. So first thing is something you have called a new, which will help you to create a new workflows. We have different types of workflows here. So we'll try to explore what is a sequence, what is something called a flowchart, what is state machine, what is global exception handler, what is forms. We have lots of different types of workflows. We'll try to discuss in a while what is this creating new workflows, right? So here we can save the project. The second one is saving, where you can save the project. So we can also export our project as a template. This will fourth button will help you to run your project directly or in a debug mode. So you can cut, copy, paste here. That is the fifth option. So if something, let's say, I've been trying to work with something called SF-based applications. By default, you will get some packages. But if you want to work with more sort of applications, you need to install the packages. And how to install the packages and where to install the packages, we will try to see going forward. And record is something an option we will try to have where you can record and convert directly into your workflows, right? So we can also extract some data here utilizing the scraping methods, what we have, the screen scraping or the data scraping. But in the latest version we have something called table extraction. User events we have here to execute activities at a user event. UI Explorer, which will help you to explore the UI elements on the web-based or the desktop-based applications. And we have something called remove or unused variables, which will help you to like make your particular project much lighter by removing unwanted things or you have created something but you haven't utilized in your particular project. So those things can be removed here in this particular session. You can also analyze the project here, which we call as workflow analyzer. And we finally try to publish your particular code. So this is all the development environment, right? So once you develop, you need to move that particular code into another environment called a test or else UAT or else into the production. So how to move these things and all, which will help you to publish your particular code. And by default, when you try to, what I can say, create or projects in Studio, it is automatically being connected with your particular orchestrator. So once you connect with the orchestrator, how to publish the things and all, going forward, you will be able to understand. Okay, fine. Let's try to see debug. We'll try to discuss going forward. Okay, so this is our main view. Fine. So one of the important things we need to discuss here again is about the project panels. I mean, the different panels we have here. So first thing is what we call as a project panel. So which will show you folders, file locations, and dependencies. So let me open this particular project folder. So at the left side, you have something called as project folder. So what is seen in the project folder here? You have something called as dependencies, and it says that it will support the Windows dependencies, and you have 5 dependencies being created for you, right? So it is nothing but if you search with activities related to these dependencies only, you can create a project. let's say that I'm trying to create something called a database integration. Okay, I'll try to search for database here. So you have here a database, but when you try to utilize, it won't be available, or else like, let's say I'll try to search for the PDF activities. You have activities, but it will be not directly being utilized. So how to make sure that if it is not there in dependencies, but you still want to install, how you can do that? You can just click on manage packages. You can click on all packages, search for packages related to, let's say I want to go with that database. Okay, so it is best suggested to go with the packages that is being provided by UiPath itself. At the end, you will see something called by UiPath. So just make sure that you selected this particular thing, and you can also select the version of the particular things. So preview is something the latest version or the latest package version that was there. You can go with the uh, things that were stable here. I'll go with the 1.7.1. I'll install and click on save. So automatically the dependencies, to make sure the activities being utilized, it will be automatically installed for you. So if you can see here, earlier the database activities are not there, but now here in the dependencies it was created, right? And the extensions of the UiPath files you are creating here, what we call it as .xaml files. We call it as a XAML files. When you create something called Excel files, you will have an extension of .xlsx. Or else if you're trying to create some PDF files, you will have extension of .pdf. You're creating some images, you'll have an extension of .jpeg or .png. Similarly, you're creating some extensions for UiPath files, you can create something called .xml files. Okay, so this is what you can see in the project sessions. In the project folder, you can also click on the project folder here. By default, this is the structure of the folder structure of the particular files that is automatically being provided by the UiPath. Okay, so if you create more files, let's say that I am creating a new flowchart here or a sequence. Okay, so I'll select test. So I'll just create here. So a new file is created, right? So another project, you can see a new file text.xml is created, right? So you can also see the test.xml is all automatically created for you, right? So why we need to create multiple files inside your particular project? It's a best practice to create multiple files inside your particular project, because let's say that I'm trying to automate 10 steps in a particular process. So all the 10 steps you cannot build in the same one file, because when you're trying to build 10 steps, it might come under like 200 activities being utilized. But if you try to utilize or build all the 200 activities in the same file, it will be heavier to debug and also identify whenever the changes comes into picture. Or else like if there's some error to identify or to change in the particular code, it will be not much familiar for also the user experience of the code, developer and all. You might be developing today and you might be handovering that particular code to another person. So he or she who try to hand over the code, so will be facing difficulties to understand if it is in a single file. So you need to make sure that you are trying to divide your code into as less YAMLs as possible, as more YAMLs as possible, so that it will be all integrated at the end. Right? It's one of the best practice we'll try to follow. So that is what we see in the project panel. So let's jump into the other panel. So the next panel we can see here is activities panel. So activities panels will help you to. So this is what we call as an activities panel. So let's say that I want to read a particular Excel file. Okay. So I'll try to search with something called read range workbook. So I'll simply drag and drop here. Okay. So this is what we call as a designer panel, where you will try to design your particular projects. So activities panel will help you to provide all the activities related to your project development center. Right. So that is what we can see in the activities panel. Access the activities available for the workplace. Right. So that is your second part. So we have something called snippet panel. It is something using samples and snippets, which is not most utilized. So we can just ignore the snippet panel. The properties panel. This is one of the important thing. So view and change the properties of a selected activity. So what I've done here, I am trying to read a particular Excel file here, right? In order to read an Excel file manually also, what you'll try to do, you'll try to go to a location, you'll try to open the particular Excel. In the Excel, you can see different sort of sheets. You'll try to select a particular sheet. So since you're trying to study manually, you'll try to store your data in your mind. But since you are trying to store the data here in your program, you'll try to store it in a variable. Right? This is all the steps you need to carry on. So once I click or drag and drop the activities, if I go here in the right side, I have something called as properties, right? So what is the properties here? I need to provide the particular workbook path, nothing but the location of the Excel file, the sheet name. In the sheet, what is the range you want to read? After reading, where you are trying to store the data in the output panel, right? If it is having something called headers, mark it as headers, preserve the format or provide the password if it is trying to open the Excel file. So I might be having some, what I can say, uh, workbook here in the desktop. Let me open, it's in the downloads. Okay, I'll just open this particular file. What's in the downloads? Open. So I just provided the path. So in that, what is the sheet name you want to read? So in the downloads, I have something called. So this is the file I'm trying to read, right? So I have something called topics. So let me try to read the topics sheet name. So this is the topic sheet name. So what is the range? You can just leave it empty so that the whole Excel file will, Excel sheet will be read. Okay, fine. After reading, where you want to store the data? So we want to store the data in a variable called dt1. I'm just simply storing that. So this is something what we call as a properties panel, where you need to provide the properties of the particular activity which you want to utilize, right? So after reading the particular data, I want to just print it in a particular message box. So since it's a data table where it has more data, so I want to first convert that particular thing into output data table as a text. So what's the data table? So if you're not providing valid inputs, it will be still showing you red. Okay, so I'm trying to convert DT1 into a text, and where you are trying to store the text in a variable called str text. So we'll try to discuss all these activities, but since it's a day one, I'm just trying to show you a sample example. But how to read an Excel, how to interact with the database, how to read some PDF files, what is this variables, what is this Excel, everything we'll try to discuss going forward. This is just a sample how you are trying to utilize. Okay. So once it was there, I'll be trying to utilize a message box to make sure that I'm trying to print this particular data. So I'm just saying the data is stored now in text file and just try to print it. So fourth button is something where you can try to run your particular file. So where it will be trying to execute and you'll be having the data, right? So this is your data that's been read from an Excel file. You have something called topics, a date, presentation, presentator, and the day. So these were the four columns. And this is something the data, right? So at a high level, we are just trying to show you. And this is how you will try to see, right? So output panel is a panel which will help you to show when your particular execution has started, when it is added, ended, and what is the course of the duration time. It's executed around like 90 seconds. Okay. So this is your designer panel. This is your project panel. This is your properties panel of the activities panel, right? And this is your designer. And if you just click on the output panel here, Since it's a very small workflow we have created, so you have all the three activities. Uh, if I just click on the activity here, you will be redirected to the particular activity. So in the code, you might be creating hundreds of activities. And if you want to navigate to the particular activity where you see that there is a change required, you can directly navigate through the outline panel here. Okay. So I'll be just stopping the PDF again to see what important panels we have here. The outline panel and nothing but showing the project hierarchy, available nodes and the activities utilized. So that is where you try to navigate. And we have something called object repository. So by default from 2020 2.10 versions, we have something called modern design experience. So earlier we used to have the classic design experience. Uh, if you're starting new, no need to see something about the classic design experience. The modern design experience is the latest or the updated design experience which UiPath is presently utilizing. So we'll also discuss about what is this modern design or a classic design. If you are utilizing modern design experience, you'll be utilizing object repository. Okay. So which we'll also discuss about what is object repository. So resources panel, what are the processes you have created, what are the assets, queues, all these things can be seen in the resource panel. So all these things will be something very new if you are trying to kickstart your journey in UiPath. But whatever the things we are trying to speak uh, today or you are trying to see today, we will try to normally utilize from tomorrow. So when I say that I'm trying to create a variable, I'll try to navigate to the variables panel where I can create, modify, or delete the things and all. Or else I say I'm trying to create some arguments are required for the particular projects. I'll navigate to the argument panel and all. So when I say I'm trying to navigate or trying to import some namespaces and all, so you should be able to understand that particular naming terminology, right? So when I say that I've created some variables, automatically in the code I've created two variables, right? Where I've stored some data in the DT1 and I converted the data of DT1 into str text using the output data table as a text, right? So this is a string type and this is a data type. So tomorrow session we'll be talking about variables. So what is a variable? How you try to utilize a variable? How we can do modifications on the variables and all? What are the different variables we can utilize inside UiPath and all, which we are going to discuss tomorrow, right? So this is your variables panel where you can try to create your variables. Arguments panel where you can create some arguments. What is difference between variables and arguments also we'll discuss tomorrow. Importing, no need to worry about these things. By default, you'll get all these things. But still, if you're there, some missing namespaces, you can still install these things. But it mostly I haven't utilized this imports panel too, right? But this is at a very high level. We want to discuss about the studio or the different panels we have or different things related to the UiPath Studio as an overview. Okay. So let me just go to the reference panels. Yes, we have discussed a release panel where you can see the errors and all. So breakpoints while debugging, it will help you to go with the breakpoints panel. So universal search bar where you can search with any sort of activities there. So classroom exercise where you want to just see all these things. Shortcuts, yes, you will be not mostly utilizing these things. Any other things? Active packages, yes, we have already discussed how to install the packages and all. So by default, you'll get to your path activities like system, Excel, mail, or UI automation. But still, if you want to install more packages, how you can install? So this is something where you can try to search with the project dependencies. You can also upgrade or downgrade your particular install activities too, right? So managing all these things were discussed. I'm going a bit faster because all these things is a theoretical part. So which we'll also be discussing all these things going forward also to make sure everything is okay and fine. We're just going. Fine. Last but not least, we'll discuss about two important things and we'll just wind up the session for today. Right. So when you're trying to create a files, let's say I said I have 10 steps in the particular process. I want to create some extra files to automate the particular process. So when you're trying to create workflows, what is a workflow basically? Workflow is a graphical representation of your particular process. So what is a workflow? Workflow is a graphical representation of your particular process. So process is something which you're trying to automate. So let's say that in the process, I want to read a file, nothing but read a Excel file. From the Excel file, I need to do some filter. After doing a filter, I need to process actual data by entering the data into web-based application. So that is the graphical representation of a particular process. So when you're trying to create a process or create a workflow, you might be coming up with the different scenarios. Your process is very simple, nothing but after step A, it's step B. After step B, it's nothing but step C or step D. Nothing but your process is very simple and linear. We will try to choose something called a sequence. So this is something we are creating is called a sequence. Let's say that your process is bit complex and it requires interaction between your particular activities. So let's say that I want to first initially utilize something called a read range. After reading your particular Excel, you are trying to take a decision here. So let's say that if you have data in your particular Excel, either you want to basically break the process or you want to just utilize a for each loop here. So in the for each loop, you want to create something called, let's say that I want to repeat number of times a particular process, or else I want to retry a particular scope or invoke a particular code, right? So at the end, I want to just make sure that I am trying to print the outcome in a message box, right? And also after doing all these things again, I want to just make sure that I'm trying to reconnect with my Excel. So process is bit complex and requires interaction between the activities. So then we can say we are trying to leverage something called as a flowchart. So mostly if it's a linear process, simple process and doesn't require any decision making, you go with a sequence. The process is bit complex to automate and requires interaction between the activities. So then you go with the flowchart. Okay. So let's learn about these two things. Going forward, you will also talk about state machine when we're trying to discuss something related to RA framework and all. But these were the three important workflows we have here in UiPath and mostly adopted to create your projects. Right? So that is what we want to discuss today. And we will try to go with a small Hello World program and we'll just wind up the session for today. Right. So I'll try to simply utilize an assign activity where you can assign values to your particular variables. Right. What is this? I'm trying to create a variable called str var. Okay. And I'm trying to say a new value being assigned to this particular str var, which I'm saying hello UI or like hello hyper automation underscore AI community. Okay. Nothing but you have assigned a new value to a str variable and you are trying to print that thing in the message box. So I'm trying to say in the message box, you're trying to print a variable called str var. Okay. And I'm just trying to run my particular file. Run will try to run it from main, but run file will try to execute your individual file. Right. So let me try to click on run file. So we have something called Hello Hyperautomation-ai community. Okay. So that's what we want to showcase on day 4 about how you can install Studio, what is something different components inside the Studio, how you can start your particular process, how to just see what are the different panels available inside the UiPath Studio. Right. Fine. If you have any queries, let's take it now in the next couple of minutes. If not, we'll just wind up session for today. Any queries, please do let us know, or else we'll just wind up the session for today. I think we are good. Fine then. Thank you. Have a great day. We will be trying to connect again tomorrow with a new topic related to variables, augments, and string manipulations. Yep. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.